to pick up the communications from the tank.
It was probably Takom's worst ever attempt at trying to tease an upcoming release when they first posted the silhouettes of these upcoming kits. The low-angled profile is instantly recognisable even to the newest of armour enthusiasts. In saying that, I guess realistically these guessing games don't ever last too long with the depth of knowledge in the Facebook universe being so vast. It's only a matter of a comment or two and the game is over. Like a lot of us, I've always had a soft spot for the Hetzer, but I've never actually built one in my preferred scale of 1/35. I've built the Tamiya 48 scale kit and loved every minute of it, and reproducing that ambush scheme was something I'd been wanting to do in a larger scale. I was just looking for an excuse to do it, and the announcement of this new Takom range of Hetzers seemed like the perfect excuse I was looking for. Takom has spoilt us and announced the release of 3 versions of the Hetzer: the early, the mid and the late. And from my understanding of the vehicle, the changes to the versions can be seen in the differing exhausts, variation in the idler wheel, changes in the toolbox, driver's vision port, and finally upgrades to the gun mantlet and the shroud. Not only have we been spoiled with the 3 versions to choose from, but we also have the option to build the model with a full interior. So whilst my plan was to build a Hetzer and paint it in the ambush scheme, the modelling gods had other plans, and I've found myself with the early version in my lap and the opportunity to build this kit as a review for the modelling news. So rather than a slideshow of full sprue shots, I thought I'd focus in on some of the more finer details in the kit and give you a better understanding of what's in the box. So without further delay, I cracked the box and took a look at some of the parts. Immediately it's obvious that the quality of the moulding is stunning and looks to be a step up from a lot of the other manufacturers out there. There isn't a part that highlights the depth and detail in the moulding more than the transmission cover. These parts are quite small and the finish is simply stunning. The inside face of the frontal armour has nice detail around the vision port as well as the wiring for the driver's controls. The skirt armour is supplied in a single moulded section for each side, and in reality this armour was only 5mm thick. In a way to create the illusion, however, Takom have angled the thickness of the part so it thins out towards the edges, making it look a lot thinner than it actually is. The side horizontal infill rails have what should be mesh screens represented as a moulded part. From my understanding, the mesh would have allowed airflow around the engine bay, and it will be difficult to see on the finished model, however I felt it was worth noting. Obviously, if you felt strongly about it, there is an Edward etch option available to explore. One of the unique pieces of this early version of the Hetzer is the gun mantlet and shroud. In an attempt to reduce the uneven load on the right hand side of the vehicle, changes were made to these sections in later versions. However, after looking at reference images, I'm wondering if the texture is a little underdone. Moving to the driver's controls and the radio units, and again the detail in the moulding is stunning and something really special. This is the type of detail once reserved for aftermarket parts, but now we get this level of detail straight out of the box. These are tiny parts under significant magnification. It's quite incredible. Being a late war vehicle, the STG-44 would have been an appropriate weapon to be stored in the vehicle. The piece looks to be rendered very well, even down to the clip on the storage clamp. A little room for improvement in the springs on the driver's seat, but in reality this will be extremely difficult to see once the model is complete, but it's still a nice looking part however. Now I move to the bulk of the model and that iconic angled shape of the Hetzer. I noticed the small tie downs are moulded into the surface of the armour wall, so this is something I may address once I begin the build. Everyone seems to be obsessed with weld beads of late, and on closer inspection, it seems to me that Takom has got that element covered with some lovely random shapes and textures through the weld beads through the corner seams. The welds through the interlocking frontal armour, however, look to be overly simplified when comparing it against reference pictures. The welds were done in a distinctive horizontal pattern, and for most of us this won't be a problem, but there is definitely an opportunity to improve the detail in this section on your own model. The rear wall of the fighting compartment comes in a single piece and has the recessed areas for the radio units. The kit comes with 2 sprues for the Lincoln length tracks. The last few new release Takom kits I've built have come with Lincoln length tracks and have been just about a perfect fit, so I would hope that these would perform in the same way. Detail and depth in the parts again is very good. The only downside I can see is the connection points from the sprues to the outer parts of the tracks. Care will be needed to be exercised not to damage the part when removing it from the sprue. The underside of the track has some significant ejector pin marks on every second link. If you were really keen, I guess you could go about filling them all. However, I don't think I'll bother. Moving to the running gear, and as a starting point, the drive sockets are put under the microscope. As is in most cases, this assembly is supplied in 2 parts. The undeniably recognisable road wheels look to be as they should, with nothing remarkable to report. The idler, however, is unique to this version of the model. Note the detail with the screw heads all being in different positions. This detail will more than likely be missed once the model is complete, but it is this sort of attention to detail that is really exciting to me with this model. The options for the toolboxes again display refinement in the moulding. Just look at the way the handles lip around the square edge of that box. The roof-mounted MG34 is nothing short of stunning, with the only addition I could see having to make would be to drill out the end of the barrel once it was removed from the sprue. The shells come in 2 different styles. The set that are stored on the sidewalls have the clip moulded into them, and the others that sit in the rack on the floor. Being a full interior kit means it also includes the engine assemblies. The Hetzer was powered by a 7.8 litre Praga 6-cylinder petrol engine producing 123 horsepower.
Try saying that 10 times fast.
Presenting a full interior model is always a challenge. An optional clear roof section is provided to give the modeler that option. A metal barrel is, of course, always a welcomed addition to any kit. A small etch fret houses the screens for the exhaust and the grille for the engine hatch, and a small piece of copper wire is supplied for the tow cable. The decal sheet is small but will give you all the markings you need. Registration looks to be slightly out under magnification, but hard to detect without it. The instruction booklet is the small style that Takom have been producing of late. The line drawings all appear to be clear and logical, however the true test will come once the build commences. One of the criticisms Takom have been getting around the Apache kits that they've recently released was a lack of colour callouts for the interiors. And whilst there are no colour callouts as such for this model, you do get coloured renders to use as some type of a visual reference. It was here I came to the realisation that again there are no colours referenced for the colour schemes, and whilst most of us will be familiar with the late war German colours, for the modeler new to the genre this may present some challenges. Takom used to regularly reference ammo by MiG colours in their instruction booklets, so I'm wondering if that arrangement has been reviewed. The first 2 schemes have an interesting spotted pattern from East Prussia seen during August of 1944. The other 2 options are an overall Dunkelgelb and finally a 3-tone version with the predominant olive green. Another detail missing from these schemes I've noticed is a lack of a top view. That's a little disappointing and will require some guesswork when painting the model.
So there it is, the Takom Jagdpanzer 38T, or Hetzer if you like, early production version with full interior. And yeah, granted, I don't get to do my ambush scheme, or at least I'm too lazy to go looking for an early production Hetzer in the ambush scheme. But in saying that, I really like some of the schemes that come with the kit, particularly the predominantly green one with the dunkelgelb and the red-brown over the top. It's a scheme that I haven't done before, so that's a challenge I think I'm going to take on. In terms of a kit, I have to say the moulding is on par with easily some of the highest quality I've ever seen, and on first glance it looks as though Takom have got the mix of detail and buildability just about right, but of course it's all going to come down to how the thing builds, and we'll find that out in the next few weeks. Having said that, my last experiences with the last two Takom kits I've built, which was the dual boxing of the Panzer 1s and the Stug 42, those kits have to be some of the most favourite builds I've ever done. They were enjoyable from start to finish. They fit, they come together well.
No, that's the same thing.
Again, great mix of detail and buildability. So if Takom's engineering is anywhere near as good as those kits, this is going to be an absolute winner. So the pros of the kit. It's an awesome subject. Now, granted, that's a subjective thing, but for me, it doesn't get much cooler than the Hetzer, so that's a big tick for me. Another pro is it comes with multiple schemes. There were a lot of these things made and they wore many different schemes, so that's a big tick for us as modelers. It comes with a full interior, which I'm going to put down as a pro. It will probably make it onto the cons list too, but I'll explain that a little bit later. It has, as I've mentioned, incredible detail, and the depth in the moulding and the parts is exceptional, absolutely exceptional. At first glance, the instructions look to be simple and logical, which hasn't been the case with a lot of kits that I've built lately. And it comes with a metal barrel. That's a big positive in my book. The cons, okay, full interior. I appreciate that a full interior is going to intimidate some people and, maybe turn them off the kit. I know you can get really bogged down with full interior kits, but in saying that, just don't put the interior in it if you don't want to. But I guess the downside of that is obviously if the kit has the full interior, it is going to have an impact on the price. So for the people who don't want to build the interior, it's just too bad. You're going to be paying for it anyway.
Ah, that's too bad.
And on the interior, I'm going to put this down as a con. It's extremely difficult to see it with the finished model unless you're doing a damaged vehicle, a wreck, something's been blown up, or if you were brave enough to do a cutaway. Now, I know the kit comes with the clear roof to show some of the detail inside. However, I just don't like that as a way to showcase the interior. To me, it just doesn't look right and interferes with the whole scheme and look of the model. I am going to build the full interior. I am not going to obsess over the full interior because I know there's just a couple of small hatches that you'll be able to peek through once the model is finished. But, so, is it a pro? Is it a con? I'll let you decide. For me, it's a pro. I get the opportunity to learn about what was in these vehicles and what their purpose was. So it's a nice little insight, little piece of history that I can sort of deep dive into without obsessing over it too much. And it'll be a little glimpse through the hatches and whatnot. Just add a little bit of finesse and detail to the model. And finally, I'm going to put it down as a con. Even though Takom have put the renderings for the interior colours, I must admit, on first glance, I thought that it was adequate, but then I started to look at it and I found the colors very hard to identify and what was supposed to be what. And then I was looking at reference photos of the actual subject, and yeah, you're gonna have to do your research. I mean, obviously I'm going to showcase how I do it on my build in the next video, but yeah, some color call outs or suggestions rather than just a color photograph with indistinct colors with some of them would have been really helpful. But in the end, wow, I'm blown away by the kit for all the reasons that I've shared. If you are in the least bit interested in this, you pick the one you like. If it's the mid, the early, or the late, I think this kit's going to be a real winner. I have actually started putting a few of the pieces together, and it looks like it's going to go together really beautifully. So watch this space, but so far so good. She looks like an absolute ripper. So if I've added some value, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. It helps me so much to get this content out and seen. And yeah, if you've got any comments, if you've started building the model yourself, or any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. Remember guys, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Be proud of what you do. Share it with your family and share it with your friends and connect with your community. It's so important. I'll see you again in a week or so. See you soon.
And there is our first impression.